Finding your direction, a career path, can be difficult. There's so many choices. Check out Life University and explore your options at their Eagle Madness Preview Day on Saturday, March 2nd. It's your opportunity to spend the day learning about their unique undergraduate programs like culinary nutrition, biology, business administration, and more. Come discover exciting majors and talk to current students and faculty at our beautiful Marietta campus. We'd love to see you at our Eagle Madness Preview Day on March 2nd. For more details and to register, visit life.edu/join today.
Extra 106.3 and a Second Chance Bail Bonds are here to back your blue. Back Your Blue highlights special initiatives, criminal justice programs, and community events aimed at keeping our communities safer. Join a Second Chance Bail Bond CEO Daniel Matalon and host Tug Coward to learn some good news about and from the law enforcement and justice communities. Now it's time to back your blue on Extra 106.3 FM and the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward along with Daniel Matalon. He is the CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds, and the reason that we do this show that highlights so many good things happening in the community that oftentimes get looked over, especially when it's, super hyper local. The news likes to focus on big topics that's easy to digest and people can have an immediate reaction, immediate opinion on it. And oftentimes the good stuff that happens in our community is much too finite for them to focus on, and that's why you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the platform is a great opportunity to highlight the people that are doing great things in our community.
No question, and there's so many of them today. Lance LoRusso is a defense attorney, the LoRusso law firm, and you are a civil You are a civil litigator with a law enforcement background, focuses the practice on critical incidents and media response, catastrophic personal injury, tractor-trailer wrecks, and wrongful death cases. And you have served as the general counsel to the Georgia State Lodge of Fraternal Order of Police. Man, that's a mouthful.
It won't even fit on a business card.
No question, man. You like before we started the show, you were talking in the phonetic alphabet, which I recognize as a guy that was in the military. But you're around police officers, like we need to get like an acronym or something,
or at least have somebody like walk around with a sandwich board.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be a whole lot easier.
That's what I do right here. Just point at them. I love it. Lance, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've represented over 100 officers in on-duty shootings or in-custody deaths and has lectured on deadly force and so many other topics that are relevant to law enforcement officers from more than 25 states, so half the country.
Yep.
Then federal agencies and international police organizations, too. How did that all begin?
So I'm actually up to about 178, just shy of 180 officers I've represented in critical incidents, mainly their shootings. But the delving into representing law enforcement started with my desire to go to law school. When I was a street cop with Cobb County, it was something I always wanted to do. I was a trainer, and I just loved the law. And I know that sounds very strange. It sounds like something you'd hear on a made-for-TV movie. Yeah, or not a Hallmark movie because we won't kiss at the end. But the bottom line is I'm just fascinated with the law. And when I was able to go to law school, I was fortunate enough to graduate from Georgia State. The question was, what do you want to do with your life? What's your mission? Have a mission that's bigger than yourself. And I represented doctors and hospitals and represented a little company called Wellstar for about 18 years.
I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, they're you might see them around.
Tiny little business.
And during that entire time, I found ways to help out law enforcement officers. And it's everything from the small issue that they have that's really controlling their lives with their HOA complaining about them parking their car in the subdivision, to the officer who's been catastrophically injured in a wreck. We have several officers right now just driving down the street, and that's the most dangerous thing they do, just statistically. 40 to 50,000 miles a year. You may have heard there's some crazy drivers, not just in Atlanta. The Stephen King Expressway 285.
Never heard a day in my life. Seems like
it might be red lights are just a suggestion.
Yeah,
so
right. Stop signs too while we're at it.
Yes, apparently. But we do that, and then really got into representing officers after shootings. I've been a firearms instructor since we were carrying flintlocks on our horses.
Dang, it's been a minute.
It's been a while, and there's so much media hype. You mentioned about the national media. There's so much misinformation about forget what happens in a specific incident, But there's so much misinformation about what the law is and when officers can use force and when they can't. And then when you have officers using force, there's so many people that are quick to jump on before they know all the facts. And it takes a tremendous toll on these officers. And the first effort that was One Cop's Kill, the book that I wrote, that's the first book I wrote. And just to let officers, their families, the media, the public know what actually happens after a shooting.
It's unbelievable to me that so many people jump on police officers not understanding the stress that they're under, not understanding the scrutiny they're under. When you're on Georgia 400 or I-20 and you have to pull a car over in the middle of the night, I can only imagine the fear. And look, these people are seemingly fearless. I mean, they're brave men and women that serve our community, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for them. But I can't imagine willfully putting myself in that situation. And I served in the Navy, man. I've seen the world. I know what goes on. I've been in war zones. Not that I'm a hero, because I'm not. But I can't imagine willfully putting myself in the situation where I had to stop a car on any interstate. I'll use 420 as the examples, but 285, 75, 85, I don't care where you are in the world. Putting yourself in that situation seems like a no-win for you, the officer. It seems like all the risk is in your court.
Well, it's interesting you say that. As I've told people before, there's more prayers said in the front seats of police cars than the back.
I can only imagine.
And I can tell you, I've said a lot of them.
Amen to that.
But, I did an interview with a really good friend of mine who retired out of Army Special Forces. I mean, he
God bless him.
He had all the T-shirts. He's one of the guys who disappeared from the department for about 18 months, and you'd see something on CNN and say, well, I guess we found him.
We've seen his work.
Yes, his work is alive and well. So the interesting thing is, I asked him, I said, what's more stressful, being a Special Forces operator or being a street cop? Because he's been both. And he said, hands down, being a street cop. I said, come on, you back up a minute. You got to be kidding me.
Come on, Spec Ops.
And he gave a really, really good explanation. He said, when you go into a country or you go into an operation, he said, you start out at a certain stress level. It's well above your normal stress level. And then you go from there to the highest stress level and back to that base. He said, in law enforcement, you start out as your normal day. You go into the convenience store that you get coffee at every day, and somebody's robbing it, or you're eating and you get a call for a kidnapping, and your stress level goes from 0 to maximum with no preparation in an instant. He said nothing's more stressful than that. And that really captured the essence of what law enforcement officers go through every day.
And I would imagine that as a special operator, everything is laid out and planned. You know what I mean, Daniel? Like everything, like every mission, ahead of time that you're going to do. And just like Lance was talking about, when you're a police officer, that could happen at any time, multiple times during the day with, as he said, with no planning, no preparation. It's just go be your perfect, the perfect version of yourself, which seems almost impossible that often, that quickly, and without notice.
Yeah, flying by the seat of your pants
all the time,
long.
the time. So the stress
and
level,
alone, by the way,
and alone,
and that was the other
thing
thing that he pointed out.
Holy
He said,
cow.
because I was asking him about active shooters and stuff. He said, when I've got 5 or 10 guys with me that are similarly trained, there's a lot we can accomplish. But to your point, the officer stopping a car at 3 a.m. on the interstate, it's you and the suspect, and you don't know if that's a person driving home who's just tired, or you don't know if that's a person who's just killed somebody or been on the run since they drove from Michigan.
Or intoxicated in some way that is going to not be very happy that you've pulled them over, and behavior will dictate and show you that they're not happy. The lack of understanding or sympathy even for police officers, I think, is forgive me, but the dumbest thing people can possibly do. I'm not saying, and we've said it on the show, Daniel, a million times, that officers are not perfect. We're not trying to paint them as perfect. But the majority, the overwhelming majority, are not going out trying to do something wrong. They care about their community. They care about the state. They care about their country. Obviously, that most of them, or a lot of them, have served at each level in some shape, form, or fashion. And that's a big misunderstanding. And I would say something that you do that maybe many people wouldn't, and that is represent the ones that are now being demonized the worst, which are police officers. I would imagine that's like a bee's nest walking into.
Well, we got the best job in the world. We get to represent heroes every day: police, firefighters, sheriffs, 911 operators. I mean, they're the people that keep our country running. They keep Cobb County running very smoothly where we're sitting right now. And it's really amazing when we see that tide turning against an individual officer. I have actually reached out to people and said, if you could sit across from this officer for 5 minutes, you would know that the person you're demonizing is nothing that you're painting them. And I think part of the problem that we're dealing with, for 40, 50 years on television and movies, people saw what, quote, law enforcement did. We basically let the public see up close what it's really like. So you have a medium they got accustomed to, and now you're blowing their minds because what they've been told for years is not true. And then we have another disconnect. We've been told that what the body camera sees is what the officer saw. And it's nowhere near that. The body camera doesn't see with the same acuity in low light and no light. It also doesn't move with the officer's eyes. The body camera doesn't blink. And the body camera doesn't get scared. The body camera doesn't focus on one thing.
No
to the
emotion
exclusion.
whatsoever.
No emotion. And, that disconnect has only furthered this idea that now I can sit on my couch with my Cheetos and I can look at this video that was just released from 6 months ago. And, man, I wouldn't have done that. Well, if you had 6.5 months to think about it, you might not have done it, and the officer might not have done it. But they had exactly the rest of their life in a fraction of a second to make a decision.
It's remarkable what these men and women are dealing with, and I'm glad that there's someone out there that sees and has experienced. And I think that's the key right there, is that you've experienced what they've experienced. So you've seen it from both sides now. The officer actually having to do a particular job, no matter how difficult, and then a guy that sees an officer that's been put into that situation and to defend them. That's a unique set of skills. There's probably not many of you out. Talking to Lance LoRusso, he is a defensive attorney at LoRusso Law Firm, and our guest here on Back Your Blue with Daniel Madelon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. My name is Tug Cowart. When we come back, standing up for first responders, what does that mean to the LoRusso Law Firm? Next on Extra 106.3.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Calling all aspiring tradespeople. Ready to master a new skill to boost your career? Introducing the Blue Collar Virtual Trade School. Learn from industry experts from the comfort of your own home. Whether it's HVAC, plumbing, or electrical work, we've got you covered. Gain hands-on expertise through immersive virtual simulations and connect with instructors who have been in the field. Elevate your career potential. The Blue Collar Virtual Trade School, where future begins with a click. Visit thebluecollarvirtualtradeschool.com or call 678-916-6145.
Extra 106.3 and A Second Chance Bail Bonds are here to back your blue. Now back to the show on Atlanta's only conservative news and talk station, Extra 106.3.
Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Cowart, along with Daniel Madelon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds, who makes this show happen. He's the reason we're spotlighting Lance LoRusso of LoRusso Law Firm. You do something that not many people do, as we discussed in that first segment. You represent the law enforcement officers, and these days they seem to be demonized more than anybody else. I don't know that there's one group of people trying to do good in their community that actually gets attacked for doing so. And it seems like this is nonstop. I'm not saying anybody's perfect. I'm not saying there's not bad apples. I'm not saying any of those things, but the overwhelming majority of guys are just trying, guys and gals, they're just trying to do the best job that they can, and they get put in incredibly difficult situations with split-second decisions. And then, as you mentioned in the first segment, if they had 6 months to think about it, they may do something different, or they may not. They may have made the right choice.
Yeah, and still they come to work even though they're being demonized. So, and I used an example with a lawyer the other day when I was talking to. They had a case that they were dealing with, and big sports town. And I said, well, you ever see an NFL game where a quarterback misses a receiver at 10 yards? I said, yeah, it happens all the time. I said, why? I said, take them off the field, take them out of the competition. Would they ever miss that receiver? They said, of course not. I said, well, think about this. It's the stress of the event. It's the stress of somebody that looks like a Buick trying to rip their head off coming through the front line. Nobody's trying to shoot them. Nobody's trying to kill them. And they know the person doesn't have a weapon in their hands. So when you start talking about making decisions under time compression, when the stakes are higher,
life and death.
Yeah, we
not
spend,
scoring a touchdown.
Exactly. We spend a week complaining about what a quarterback did on Sunday. So when you start looking at the incredible time compression and the stakes and what the officers have to process in that time frame, it's amazing, and they do a great job. Officers make 12 to 13 million arrests a year. Good
Lord. Is it like across the country?
Across the United States.
Yeah. That's such an incredible. And what an analogy, Daniel. That's a thing, because how many times have we come in here and started the show complaining about officials making bad calls, or our team didn't win? I mean, that is such a relevant comparison, because you're in the deep South, man. Ain't nobody loves college football more than the people, maybe even in this room.
That's right.
And that analogy is so impressive. And you see it up close because you work so closely with the officers and with those municipalities, those police departments, sheriff's offices, DA's offices. You get to see this up close, and that's exactly what Lance is talking about. These people making incredibly difficult decisions in a split second.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Lance personally for being on the show, because I know his time is in high demand, and I think he's a phenomenal lawyer, and we've done a lot of work for his firm with his clients and stuff like that. So it's cool to be able to have him on here.
No doubt. So, what are some of the things that you're dealing with right now at your law office? And obviously, you can't go into detail, and I'm not asking for that, but just some of the things so people that are listening, they know the kind of things that are going on in their community, the kind of things you're having to help with.
And it's really interesting. Well, like we said, we see the aftermath, but I'll give you an example. We have a few officers that driving down the street, their lives changed forever because somebody was either driving negligently, driving DUI.
Looking at their phone?
Looking at their
phones.
Oh, my Lord.
It's amazing.
I think
that's the biggest one.
Yeah, and it's just it's hard to imagine. Everybody gets injured in a wreck, it affects their lives. But just imagine, and I've got a particular client in mind, going from the guy who's going to be called when there's somebody running into a school trying to shoot children, and now you can't be left alone. So the amount of world change that happens for officers, firefighters, police that get injured, they're the ones that everybody calls for help. And when they need help, it's extremely difficult for them. So to be able to stand up for them and not only stand up in court, but to be able to assist them in their personal lives as they navigate through this with these serious car wrecks, it's an honor to be able to do it. But boy, some of these injuries are just horrifying.
And that's the other thing, because we're in a very politicized world. Maybe more politicized than it's ever been in my recollection in my nearly 47 years of life. And that's the thing. You hear the defund the police movement, and I'm not trying to get into politics at all, but there's it's clear that there are actively people working against the people that normal citizens are going to reach out to in the time of emergency. And there's even been people that are defund the police people, and or supporters, I guess I should say, and they have personal security. So yeah, they don't have to call the police because they have personal security. Now they want to defund the only security you, because I can't afford security. My security department is the Alpharetta Police Department. That's who I call in that moment. And yet they still choose to demonize someone like maybe one of your clients, or might end up being one of your clients.
Well, you got a good team looking out after you.
No
That's
kidding, they're good
department.
folks up there.
And it's really interesting. The defund the police movement is the fastest conceived, implemented, and failed social policy in United States history.
Boy, howdy.
And I tell law enforcement, I tell public safety all the time, don't listen to the noise, because overwhelmingly the public supports you. And even the people who, quote, don't support you because, I don't know, they think they're the only individuals in the room and the smartest people in the room, but they're probably not even when they're standing in a closet by themselves, they still call 911 because as much as they want to complain, you know, when grandma's at the table grabbing her chest and having a heart attack, they want a trained paramedic and they want law enforcement officers there to make sure that paramedic gets to the hospital quickly.
It's amazing to me, Daniel. It's amazing to me that anybody would have that point of view. But like Lance said, it's failed. It's obvious that it's failed. But the remnants, the things that stick around or the ideas that have stuck around because of it, is that something you see or do you have to deal with at all?
Well, I mean, we deal, you know, we hear the other side of it, obviously, sometimes from the defendants. And you look, I mean, you know, our job is not to.
Yeah, you're not the judge. You're not the jury.
Is there to guarantee their appearance in court. That's what we serve. That's my purpose in it. But you do hear all sides of it, and yeah, it's unfathomable to think that, like, you know, that's where we would be as a society or where we're at now. And it's gotten, you know, in the last couple of years, obviously, it's been really bad here.
Do you see that, Lance, the remnants of, because it's failed, and I think most municipalities, most people are kind of moving away from it. I can't imagine anybody supported it, but they did. So some people. Do you see the remnants, though, that are sticking around, that are kind of embedded, that it's going to take a while to get rid of?
We do. And, you know, I'm just amazed when I see the 21-year-old, 22-year-old who still wants to go into law enforcement. And,
Me too.
You know, I'm thankful that they're there. But what was happening, and you said about remnants, we're having the 20 and 30-year veterans who normally would have stuck around for a few years popping smoke and jumping out. They're like, I've had enough. A lot of times their spouses and their families are like, hey, you made it to this point, we're done. And that community support is so impressive when you've asked these officers, why are you still in it? It's not the pensions. It's not, you know, if it's the money, they all need to have fitness for duty evaluations.
No kidding.
It's because they got that support. It's that person at the worst day in their career who came up and said, hey, thank you for your service, while they're sitting there in a restaurant. That just makes all the difference in the world.
Just saying thank you for your service, just paying it forward. Those are the things that I try to impress on my own kid. We have officers at our church every Sunday morning, and even though I've told these gentlemen, because they're kind of on a rotating, you know, that guys, whatever, and I bet I've told each one of them, as being a member of our church for the last 12 years, I bet I've told each one of them that hundreds of times. But I'm going to continue because I genuinely believe that they are doing work that is meaningful, that matters, that is important. And I want them to know it. I was with a friend of mine. We stopped and got lunch one day, and there was a police officer sitting, not with us. We had no idea who he was. Just he was over eating by himself. And my buddy says to the waitress, hey, we want to take care of that one too. You know, it's
Good
just
for
the
you.
little stuff.
Yeah.
Look, I would love to take credit for it. It wasn't even my idea. He did it, you know, and I want to be that example too. I want to do those things because that does matter. Those little things make a huge difference. And I know you see it and probably have experienced it yourself.
Absolutely. As I remember as a young officer, people coming up and thanking me, and it made a huge difference.
Words matter, man.
Yeah, it really does. And it's just we talk about body language and the way people interact with you. And the law enforcement officers can see the compassion in those people's faces. I mean, there's stories in Harris County, Texas, a few years ago, had that guy that was killed getting gas. And you can find the story on the net. A couple of weeks later, another officer was getting gas, and he's in uniform, and this older gentleman is standing there with his back to him. He said, you need some help? He said, no, I'm just watching your back.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
the public supports law enforcement, and the problem is that we have some very I'm not even going to say they're ignorant. A lot of them know better. They just want to yell louder than everybody else.
Influential, though, I think. A lot of the people you might see on the news at night, they have an influence,
right?
And it's not necessarily a good influence. And look, there's plenty of that out there for sure. Let's talk about the Cobb County Public Safety Foundation, which you had a hand in starting.
Absolutely. So my wife and I started that in 2019. We had a little bit of a slow start getting out. You may have heard that, I know it's a news station, you may have heard 2020 there was something that went on with some sort of
something happened
illness.
in
People weren't gathering. We'll Google it later.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
But we're in full swing. You know, we had our second 5K down here at the Battery, which was very successful. We went from about 250 people the first year to about 700 the next year. So we're going to top 1,000 next year. And raising money for our acronym is REST, Relief, Equipment, Support, and Training. And that's everything from the mental health training and resiliency to getting equipment. Right now, we just finished fundraising for some decontamination procedures. It's called a storm stick for firefighters. The number one killer of firefighters is cancer, generally after they retire. But the contaminants from fires just are very, very deadly.
I can only imagine. And the rest that you talked about, go through that again.
Relief, equipment, support, and training.
And that's what you raise money for.
That's
all of those categories.
Right. ccpsf.org, Cobb County Public Safety.org, Foundation.org.
Yeah. ccpsf.org.
Yep.
There you go. That's the way to do it. Y'all have a motto at your firm, at the LoRusso law firm, standing up for first responders. What does that mean to you when you hear it stated aloud?
Our commitment at the firm, and it is amazing. We have 20-year-olds at the firm. We have 50-year-olds at the firm, and everything in between. We have former law enforcement. We have former military. We have people who recognize that, as I've said, Cobb does not work. Communities do not work without public safety to support them. And just the fact that we can stand in the gap for them, and even when they're being demonized, when they're hurt, when they need assistance, taking up for them and their families is just an incredibly honorable opportunity.
Daniel, that's something that I know you have a strong feeling about, too, is supporting men and women that support the community. And that's something that I'm sure that's how you know Lance is through those mutual benefits that you do, whether it is a 5K or I know you participate in all kinds of fundraisers across the community. Here in Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, and supporting those same officers, or at least many of the same officers.
Yeah, and obviously Cobb County is where I started, almost 17 years ago. So Cobb holds a special place in my heart. Right. But yeah, no, it's anything that we can do in these arenas, and we just launched the Second Chance Community Foundation, which look forward to doing stuff with your foundation as well, and having those alliances and makes us all stronger, and the give back is why I do it. So that's the best part of my day. So
now I know your law firm has also, Lance, raised over $40,000 for charitable. I assume the same men and women in uniform, or our police and men and women.
Yeah, I've written several books, and the nonfiction books, we donate the profits to law enforcement charities. So we've been fortunate enough to raise over $40,000. We also have a book called Peacemaking, about a cop's walk with Christ. And somebody asked me if it was a fiction book. I said, well, I guess depends on how you look at it. But we just had somebody buy 500 copies for an entire department.
Wow.
And, the folks need support, but also just it gives us an opportunity to direct that support to where it's needed.
But I love the fact that, because my faith is so important to me, and I've seen a very common theme while recording these shows, that faith is so very important to almost every guest that we've had on. And it's no surprise to me. Maybe it would be to somebody who isn't a faithful person, but it's no surprise to me that so many of the guests that come on the show, Back Your Blue, are rooted in faith, because there's something about our faith that challenges us to be better and to be more Christ-like.
We're missing something. I just did an interview on Newsmax about an active shooter at a school. And one of the things that I said was, we've gotten to a point where instead of teaching people how to deal with differences, how to deal with conflict, we're telling people that if somebody disagrees with you, it's okay to hate them. And that's just utter nonsense. If somebody says words, that's the equivalent of violence. And I think those folks need a thesaurus. But the bottom line is religion, a higher purpose, believing in something bigger than themselves. It's not about you, which is a chapter in a book that I'm just finishing right now. It's being considered by a publisher called Serve Others, Live Without Fear. And just realizing that you're not the center of the universe. I know that's a crazy concept.
Ooh, buddy, get off social media if you think that's the case.
That's something public safety officers recognize. The 23-year-old firefighter who goes into a house because someone said, I didn't see my neighbor leave. She's 80 years old, and I think she might be inside. And they risk everything they have to go into a burning building. I don't know how you do that without faith.
That's a greater calling, no question about it. And you're right, because you know that there's something greater. Not even just a greater cause, but something greater after this life, or after whatever you feel like this is. If you're not faithful, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine. I can't imagine getting through many days without being faithful. For me personally.
Yeah, and I had, when I released Peacemaking, I had somebody ask me if all cops were religious, and I said, I don't know. I guess if they're not religious, maybe they're just stronger than I am.
Yeah, I guess so. What was the old saying? There's no atheist in a foxhole.
Yes,
that there's a reason that has been coined over the years, because I think when you're it's easy. When everything's going along hunky-dory and you're just driving to work, and you go to work, and you go home, and you have dinner, and whatever. When everything is just so, it's easy to be like, oh, there's nothing more. Because nothing is challenging your way of thinking. But the instant something does challenge your way of thinking, I think that's when people really, really do open up their minds and listen more and try to understand more. Nobody wants trials and tribulations, but, man, we sure learn a lot when we go through them.
But that's why it's so dangerous when you're talking about the naysayers with public safety, because we need the best and the brightest in law enforcement. We need the best and the brightest in firefighters joining the ranks of either firefighters, paramedics. We need the best and the brightest. The Cobb County 911 Center answered over 905,000 calls last year. Over 90% they answered within a few seconds. So we need the best that we can get in those positions, and if we're trying to badmouth them all the time, we're going to run good people away, and then we're going to get good folks who are choosing between professions saying, no, I'm not up for it.
I know we've seen that, Daniel, with people retiring early. Lance brought it up. I can imagine with your work at a Second Chance Bail Bonds with local municipalities and law enforcement agencies and whatever, that those numbers, I mean, we see it in the military for sure. I would imagine that the police officers or the police organizations throughout the metro are experiencing some of the same things for those exact reasons.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable that people behave the way that they do, and but that's the thing, it's people like you and Daniel and I and everybody on the show that sees the truth, even through the nonsense that we have to wade through, whether on social media, on your phone, or on the news, or on a website, or a radio broadcast. Being able to discern truth from fiction seemingly is really difficult to do, but somehow we've all been able to weed through that, which is we must be all smarter than everybody else or something.
I don't know about that, but I will tell you this, at least speaking for myself. I wrote a book called Blue News about the intersection of law enforcement and the media, and released it a couple of years ago, and I teach a lot of media response classes. And part of the problem has been law enforcement needs to be better at telling their story. And when I say be better at telling their story, it's not necessarily as a criticism. It's the fact that they go from crisis to crisis to crisis, and they tend to minimize the good that they do. Oh, yeah, I changed that tire for that person whose car was stuck on the right lane of 75.
And
yeah,
5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, but then I went on to some other call that was more important. I don't need to talk about that. Yeah, you do. I mean, that was the most important thing you did that day.
Especially for that person.
For that mom with 2 kids in a minivan who was scared to death, the worst fear they've ever experienced, until you pulled up with blue lights and saved the day.
So how do we do that? I mean, what is it that we need to – obviously this show is a good platform for it. But what is it that we need to do, in your opinion, to tell those stories, to get that out there? Because the officers themselves, as you said, are not going to toot their own horn. It's like the veterans that won't stand up in the stadium over when the Braves say, hey, we want all of our veterans, we want to recognize you, please stand up. And some do, but I guarantee you there's about half that don't, because that's not the attention they want. It's not about them.
Yeah, I think the best way you do it is just to speak up loudly. Tell the stories of how they changed your life. Tell the stories of how they made a difference in the community. And as we said, reaching out to them and saying hello. But right now, with the shortages we have, Go out and recruit the best and the brightest people you know to get in law enforcement. And it's not just the 20-year-olds. You know, I know people who started in law enforcement at 40 and 45 years old one guy after leaving a career as a financial advisor.
Goodness. Daniel, have you seen that lately? Because I've not. I must admit, I've not seen people dropping what they're doing, a successful financial advisor, and just sitting it all down to say, hey, I want to go serve my community.
Yeah, no.
I've never, ever, ever heard that story, and I work in the media, for heaven's sakes. If I've never heard it, then the majority of people listening right now have never heard it either.
Yeah, no, there's a shortage. I mean, we see it in the jails, we see it in the police departments. Even, the training center that is the big hot topic here in Atlanta. Has been a bombshell in the media, but it's like, well, there wasn't enough training. Well, then you go to build a training center. Well, then now nobody wants the training center. Yeah, it's wild.
It's
but
the strangest thing, Lance. I'm sure you have an opinion on that.
I do, but let me follow up with this. The Cobb County Police Department has 3 licensed attorneys working there.
Okay.
PhD level folks. We have a lot of people with master's degrees. So the nonsense that officers don't have a lot of education is just ridiculous. But, so far as the training center, you have folks who screamed and hollered law enforcement needs more training. And then you're going to build a training center, and they're complaining about it. So, they just need to sit home in the basement and eat Cheetos and just let the adults handle it.
And continue to complain on social media.
Yeah, that's fine.
Literally,
you can have social media. We'll have reality.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What's trying to bomb the? I mean,
it's insane.
I mean, it's nuts.
The insanity of it all is I brought up that exact point, Lance, so many times on our show. It's like you can't ask for training, then get it and complain and be mad. Not even complain about it. Be mad. Be willing to set equipment on fire. You're so mad about it.
Or be willing to travel from another state.
Well, see, but that's the other thing. Most of those people don't live in this community, and we'll continue this conversation next on Back Your Blue, talking with Lance LoRusso of LoRusso Law Firm and, of course, Daniel Madelon of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. My name is Tug Coward on Extra 106.3. Is this the year you want to grow your business? Do you want to expand your team? Build a new office? Hey, it's Tug, and I want to tell you about First Liberty Building and Loan. Aren't you exhausted by going to lenders, building a relationship, and a week later, you're dealing with a new person? You won't have to with First Liberty Building and Loan. The Frost family has been helping businesses grow since the 90s, and they can help you too. They know the patterns, they know the ebbs and flows, and they know business. Now the Frost family wants to know you. FirstLibertyGA.com. Buying a building, building a building, buying a franchise, or expanding. Reach out and spend 10 minutes with them. See if you're a fit for them and if they're a fit for you. FirstLibertyGA.com. By the way, if you're a young banker and you want to work with a team that's faith-friendly with a culture of excellence, First Liberty might be a good match. Reach out to First Liberty Building and Loan at FirstLibertyGA.com. That's FirstLibertyGA.com.
Job seekers, stop the endless job hunt. The Blue Collar Recruiter is your key to the career you deserve. Are you a skilled worker seeking the right opportunity? Look no further. We connect you with employers who appreciate your dedication and expertise. Technicians, electricians, plumbers, welders, and more. We've got it all, and opportunities are just waiting for you. So skip the frustration and let us guide you to your next job. Call the Blue Collar Recruiter, 678-916-6145, or visit thebluecollarrecruiter.com.
This is Back Your Blue, presented by A Second Chance Bail Bonds, live on Extra 106.3 FM and streaming for free anytime on the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome back to the final segment of Back Your Blue. Daniel Madelon from A Second Chance Bail Bonds and our guest, Lance LoRusso, defense attorney from LoRusso Law Firm, who represents officers. I think you said earlier, over 180? Is that it?
Yeah, right at 180 officers involved in shootings and critical incidents.
Yeah. The guy that comes to the rescue of the rescuers is kind of what you are, man. You need a cape or something.
Well, with my team, we've probably over 300 for the firm.
Man, that's amazing. And I know you started the Cobb County Public Safety Commission. And I want to use this, at least time we have left, to bring some attention to that, what they do, and how it gets funding, because most people don't realize that, of course, it's not connected to the government.
Yeah, we've had to explain to people, governments don't have nonprofits. So it's the Cobb County Public Safety Foundation, ccpsf.org. And we started in 2019. What we basically did was realize, kind of like the Atlanta Police Foundation and other groups, we needed something focused on Cobb County Public Safety so we could keep them here, improve their quality of life, make sure we're taking care of them, everything from their resiliency. I mean, if you think about, there's one statistic I heard, the average person in their life will experience 4 events that could cause post-traumatic stress, not PTSD, which becomes the disorder, but post-traumatic stress. The average public safety officer in a 20-year career experiences 700.
Oh, wow.
So they're taking care of their mental health, taking care of their training, providing opportunities for them to not have to travel for a week to get training, bring that instructor in. And it's been a tremendous opportunity. Our board is made up of people in the community who are very caring. They want to be involved. And to a person, they're all committed to public safety. But when we send them to an event, they're like, boy, I thought I really knew. And right now we're recruiting for our Public Safety Ambassador program that'll start in January. They can go to ccpsf.org and apply. And it's kind of like you've heard of these police academies for citizens.
Yeah.
Well, this is an opportunity to experience all of public safety. We bring them to the police, fire, sheriff, 911, animal control, EMA, all of these different groups to understand exactly what happens behind the scenes. The Real-Time Crime Center, I was there when that group went through, and boy, they look like a bunch of kids at Six Flags, man. Their eyes were big. They could not believe this much technology is incorporated into public safety in the state of Georgia.
Which is another reason that someone listening right now has kids or grandkids getting ready to graduate high school, getting ready to graduate college even for that matter. And Daniel, the technology is there, and so many of these kids that are graduating high school and college are so submerged in technology, they understand it better than anybody. And if they're looking for a career, just like Lance had talked about, we need our best and brightest to serve in our communities. And this is a great way for kids to be able to experience that, whether it's through like the academy like Lance was talking about, but to put those skills and the things that they enjoy doing to good use in their community.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The kids today now have, I mean, my son who's 13.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's
you
like.
have to call him to set up an email address.
Yeah.
I know. We've all been there. It's not that uncommon, but
I said it would never happen, but it's happening.
Boy, I used to be, Lance, I used to be in my house. I used to be the guy that would set up the computers, set up the printers, and now I have to physically call my kid who's in South Carolina going to school and be like, hey, man, can you walk me through this? You know, like I'm calling a doc in a box or something.
I'm just amazed that the cursor blinks on the screen.
Yes,
but,
that's
you know,
right.
and one
right.
of the things that law enforcement has adapted from the military, because the military does so many things very well, but bringing people in with a GED or a high school diploma and then helping them get their education. And I'm going to brag about a great agency right now, the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, the game wardens, just changed their program. So you can start as a game warden with a high school diploma or a GED, and they will help you get your college requirement done as you're finishing the academy. So there's so many great opportunities, like you said, for people that really don't know what they want to do. Maybe college isn't for them. Between the intelligence analysts that are being used now, the drone specialties that are being developed, there's so many avenues for young people who are bright, that care about their communities, to start in public safety.
But that real-time crime center,
It is amazing.
That looks like something off the Jetsons. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put into words what they're capable of, and then the technology behind it to make it all work together.
Yeah, and it's just the wins that they have had, if you will, just in the relatively few years that technology has been available. They have absolutely saved lives. And I heard somebody summarize it this way. You know, when you're looking for someone who has committed a heinous act, you start out with the entire state of Georgia if they did something in Fulton County, and then you try to narrow that. But with cameras and other technology and other opportunities to gain intelligence, you can narrow it down to a half mile within a few minutes. Now you can flood resources there and keep the public safe.
Well, I'm sure you recall there was something that happened. It was a shooting in downtown Atlanta, and we had someone on the show talking about how the Real-Time Crime Center were able to track them down almost to a few blocks, and it was very close to where we are.
In Cobb County.
Yeah, here in Cobb County. That's exactly right, man. It's impressive.
Oh, it's amazing. And what it's done basically is also raise the level of awareness and level of technology and level of education that these officers have to have, I kind of feel like third base. Maybe Atlanta needs a training center. I don't know.
Yeah, just talking off the top of your head.
It's just an idea that flew into my head.
Yeah, right. No, but that's the thing. I mean, are there? I think there's things that we have to be careful with. Technology can be so good and used so poorly or so badly. So there is a delicate balance there, because I'm sure as a lawyer, there are ways to use that in a negative way that won't help any private citizen or police officer. Just the whole Big Brother thing scares a lot of people, and I understand that. So there is a delicate balance, but there's a room for all of it.
Yeah, there not only is there, but there's also guardrails put in place.
That's
and
what
and I heard somebody
summarize
summarize that really well. Say that guardrails are not just to protect you; they're to protect everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
And those guardrails are put in place to make sure that everybody's has parameters. But to throw out all of that technology or throw out all of those opportunities to protect people, and just think about the person who has dementia, who's driving, and that happened to a relative of ours who was just driving and nobody could find her. Much easier to find those folks now.
Yeah, no question about it. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, there's plenty. I want to brag on you a little bit, because you talked about the education level of so many of the officers. You've got an undergrad from Emory University, which is, you may have heard that little university. Some relatively smart
people.
It's over
in Decatur or somewhere.
Something, I don't know. Master's degree from Kennesaw State University, go Owls. Graduated with honors, Georgia State University of Law, licensed to practice in 3 states. Not only Georgia, but Tennessee and Arkansas as well. Have written so many books. How many books total?
11.
11. Yeah, it's 11 books.
It's spare time.
I'm not sure I've read 11 books. This dude's written 11 books. But a firearm instructor for over 25 years, a force expert, regularly consults with attorneys defending law enforcement officers in use of force in criminal cases brought against them in their performance or of the performance of their duty. So you're doing the Lord's work.
Well, I'll sum it up with Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, and they're taking care of us, so the least we can do is take care of them every day.
Where can folks find out about your law firm and about the Cobb County Public Safety Foundation they're involved with?
So LaRussoLawFirm.com. They can also find the books at LanceLaRussoBooks.com, and they're also available on Amazon, as is everything.
As is everything.
And the CCPSF.org, Cobb County Public Safety Foundation.org. And there's links to donate. There's links to, we work with the Cobb Community Foundation, which is a great organization. You should have some of their folks on. The work they do is amazing.
Yeah, we will.
So, we're looking forward to our 5K and any other ventures we can get involved and take care of our folks, take care of us.
Daniel, thank you for making this show happen, man. We appreciate everything y'all do at a Second Chance Bail Bonds.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. Have a great weekend.
Calling all aspiring tradespeople. Ready to master a new skill to boost your career? Introducing the Blue Collar Virtual Trade School. Learn from industry experts from the comfort of your own home. Whether it's HVAC, plumbing, or electrical work, we've got you covered. Gain hands-on expertise through immersive virtual simulations and connect with instructors who have been in the field. Elevate your career potential. The Blue Collar Virtual Trade School, where future begins with a click. Visit thebluecollarvirtualtradeschool.com or call 678-916-6145.
What are your plans for your business this year? Hey, it's Tug. Do you want to expand and grow? Aren't you exhausted by going to lenders, building a relationship, and a week later, you got a new person to deal with? You have to start all over again? You don't have that with First Liberty Building and Loan. The Frost family has been helping businesses grow since the 90s, and they want to know you. Unlike big banks, they want to partner with you. The Frost family knows the patterns. They know the ebbs and flows. They know business. Get to know them at FirstLibertyGA.com. Building a building, buying a franchise, expanding. Reach out to them. Spend 10 minutes with them. See if you're a fit for them and if they're a fit for you. You do that at FirstLibertyGA.com. And by the way, if you're a young banker and want to work with a team that is faith-friendly and has a culture of excellence, First Liberty might be a good match. Reach out to them today. First Liberty Building and Loan. FirstLibertyGA.com. That's FirstLibertyGA.com.
A lifetime of hard work. Children laughing in the kitchen. Family photos on a restaurant wall. A legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation. Like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.